They say that talking to yourself is a sign of insanity. But I think that's only if you answer back, right? Right. This is Talking to Myself, an art advice podcast where I use anecdotes from my life to try to make myself a better artist, and possibly a better person. Hopefully other people will also get something out of this, but honestly, I'm just trying to avoid therapy and fill the time during the quarantine. Today is a special episode of Talking to Myself. That bit about filling the time during quarantine is not exactly true, which we'll get to in a minute. For posterity's sake, I'll just mention that this is being recorded in March of 2020, and the whole world is in the throes of an pandemic, due to the COVID-19 virus. People are being quarantined at home, businesses are closing, everyone's losing their jobs, things are going to hell, basically. And this is my one nod towards reality and an attempt, for once, to directly help other people rather than just meandering about my own past and trying to do better on my own personally. A quick review here. My personal situation hasn't changed very much at all due to the COVID virus, pandemic isolation thing. A little bit. I live in Australia and have since 2007. Things here are not quite as bad as back home in the US, and certainly not as bad as some of the other places in Europe and Asia. But there are some various restrictions here that are causing problems. There are some shortages of goods, mostly due to people panic buying. There are lots of businesses that are closing, either temporarily or permanently, because of the ban on groups gathering in places, which is becoming mandatory quickly because people are ignoring the ban on people gathering places, going to the beach and hanging out in parks and everything. And I think eventually we're going to see this become legally enforced isolationism for the most part. But that's only to say that this hasn't actually affected me very much. My normal day job is an essential service, so I'm still working every day, just like I was 3 weeks ago, just like I was a month ago, just like before any of this happened. So unlike a lot of people that are artists, I haven't had a lot of time on my hands at home to complain about. I haven't really been stuck at home any more than I normally am. My normal lifestyle is to stay at home pretty much all the time anyway. So although I am not myself quarantined, and I'm not in a situation where I'm forced to be inside all the time, I do relate to people that are, and I understand how difficult it can be. And I want to say that I'm with you. To that end, I'd like to describe a couple things that might help you if you want to try to take up art or get better at art or have something to do while you're stuck inside, rather than just mindlessly watching another Netflix documentary about something you don't even care about, or trying to FaceTime people again. It's hard for me to relate to that because I don't have a lot of contact with people in normal life, so a situation where I feel like I'm cut off is not exactly what's happening right now for me. It's not important. What's important is, here's some things, artistically related, that you can try to ease the boredom, or maybe pick up a new skill. Maybe you want to learn how to do some art stuff, and you don't know how to get started. So as long as you have a piece of paper and something to make a mark with, pen, pencil, whatever, you can start drawing. Drawing is a great way to get into it. As kids, we learn how to draw because it's easy and it's accessible. The tools are very easy to manipulate and they're very easy to come by. So that's why kids are always drawing, or they're encouraged to. It's a good, quiet activity. If you have kids, I definitely recommend getting them to draw or color or something like that to make your lives a tiny bit easier. But if you want to learn a new skill, drawing's a good one to take up. I'm not going to go into the formal education stuff about exercises you can do to get better as a professional artist and all that stuff. Basically, here's some fun things you can do to draw while you're practicing or hanging around. Take a bunch of paper, write down nouns, basically. Write down things, objects, at random, maybe 10 or 12. And then write down an adjective, maybe 10 or 12 of those. Things like, tall, skinny, on fire, anything that comes to mind. Take those in two piles and shuffle them around in two piles. Draw one from the noun pile, draw one from the adjective pile. That's the subject of the thing you're going to draw. Now try to make it easy on yourself. If you don't know how to draw complex objects, obviously maybe leave out things like bicycles or the human circulatory system. But if you're just going to have fun with it, whatever, man. Write ninja for the noun and write perplexed for the adjective if you want to have some fun with it. That's a fun one to do. It doesn't require a lot of resources. All you need is paper and pencil. You can also do it in a group if you're stuck inside with your family, want something you guys to do together. Maybe you're sick of each other and you need something to take your mind off it, and you're not going to watch another documentary about fungus. David Attenborough is a king, but I don't know if I can watch all of his material back to back to back to back. Try this with your kids. Have them write them and you do the drawing. Vice versa. Have some fun with it. It's just a dumb little idea I came up with that involves having some fun, doing something you probably don't normally do if you're not an artist. When I was a kid, I lived in the rural part of North Carolina, as I've mentioned here before. We would often have power outages during storms. We weren't part of the city necessarily. We were on the city grid, obviously, but we weren't part of there wasn't a proper city nearby. It was a small town. So it might take, 12 hours to get power back. And I would always get, angry mostly because we lost lights. I didn't watch a lot of TV as a kid because you couldn't get but two or three channels. This was before cable. Didn't have a computer. This is before that too, because I'm old. But without light, I couldn't read or draw. And that was the two things I mostly did, was read and draw things and stuff like that. One time the power went out and my aunt was over, and she showed me this neat trick that we could do when the power went out that I ended up doing when the power wasn't out, just for fun. You take the candle that you're using for light and some toothpicks. You dip the toothpick, you get a cup of cold water as well, which will probably be room temperature water in this case. Don't open the fridge if the power's out, just leave it. You dip the toothpick into the molten wax until you get a coating of it. You dip it in the cold water to harden it. You repeat the process until you have a little waxen ball on your stick. Then you insert another toothpick into that waxen ball and coat it a few more times to give it some strength. You can make little figures out of these, little structures, like molecular models or stick figures, literally stick figures. So I ended up making quite a few of those. Even when the power wasn't out, I ended up making quite a few of those. Just a fun activity. And it's an example of how you can entertain yourself with whatever's at hand if you just try. You just have to think about it, figure out maybe there's something I can do to be fun. Maybe I don't have to sit around worrying about everything, because I know there's a lot of worrying going on right now. Whether you have power or you're isolated or not, or any of that stuff. Everyone's worried, and I totally understand why. Like I said, things for me are pretty much the same as always, but except for that horrible worry that 30% of the workforce is going to lose their jobs. And I don't think I'm part of that. I could be. I don't know. Nobody knows. That's the worry. But like a lot of things, worrying about it in this case is not going to help me prepare for it. So worrying is just useless. So I'm trying to avoid worrying at all and just doing stuff. Just draw something, in my case. Or make a podcast. I mentioned that before too. So make a podcast is something you can do. If you have access to your phone and you have a smartphone, you probably have everything you need to make a crude podcast. Or a short video, or just do something you always thought you might want to give a try. It doesn't matter if it's any good. You don't have to show it to anybody. The idea is just to have a little fun, take your mind off what you're doing, what you're not able to do, and maybe you learn a skill that you can use later. So I know this is not exactly a normal episode, and I apologize if that makes any difference to anybody. I was just hoping maybe I could help out a little bit with some suggestions as what to do when you're stuck at home, even though myself, I'm not stuck at home. I'll still be struggling for free time to make the podcast and to do art and stuff like that as normal. But hopefully this will help you a little. Whatever your circumstances, I hope you guys stay safe. Be careful. Wash your hands. Take care of yourself. We're all in this together. And if you make stuff, definitely keep making stuff. We need you. I'll see you guys next time.